If you've been looking to add more size and strength to your biceps, but no matter what you do, it just doesn't seem to work, I promise that by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you need to do to make those biceps grow. I'm going to tell you the exercises you need to perform and how to integrate them into your workout to start packing some size onto those guns. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Murphy. I co-founded League Fit Academy 9 years ago with the sole focus of educating young rugby league players about how to build their body, their skills and their mind. And we now work with hundreds of players across 6 different continents right around the globe. Now, this is really part 4 of how you should be structuring your gym program. Parts 1 through 3 can be found on our YouTube channel. In part 1, we cover your upper body training. In part 2, we look at lower body training. And in part 3, we address your shoulder stabilizers and how they are often the most neglected body part, which is why for a lot of people, training them properly can be a massive avenue for improvement, both in the gym and even more importantly on the rugby league field. Now, the links to each of these are in the show notes, so if you haven't seen them before, I definitely recommend you check them out because the information in this episode will make a lot more sense if you've seen them first. Look, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and if you've got any questions or maybe an area you'd like me to address in the next episode of Joe Knows, go ahead, put it in the comments, and I'll make sure that I get to it. Also, a quick side note about this, I was going to be doing it on arms, but there's actually too much information that I wanted to touch on in regards to biceps or elbow flexors, so I'll do another part where I focus just on triceps. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes of the topic, I just want to very briefly touch on an issue, because there's definitely going to be a few people who might bring this up, which is the train of thought that, you know, as a rugby league player, why do I even need to train arms? Well, like I said, I'll be brief, but basically because your arms are an integral part of your body. And anytime you are pushing, whether it's a fend on an opposition player or fighting to get up off the ground to play the ball, you are using a push movement pattern, which involves your chest, it involves your shoulders, and believe it or not, it involves your arms, right? So it stands to reason and holds up with all of our experience training young rugby league players that getting bigger and stronger arms will definitely help with any and all of the pushing and the pulling movements. Now, does that mean that you need to have a day dedicated specifically to training arms? Absolutely not. Everyone is at a different level with their physical development. Some people basically just look at a dumbbell and they start to grow. Putting on size and strength is almost as natural as breathing to those people. We've got a player currently in the program, contracted a year young to one of the Sydney clubs to play SG ball. And he looks like what a typical 25-year-old gym junkie who's been lifting for 5 or 6 years look like. Now, don't misunderstand me, he still works his backside off and his eating's on point, but his genetics are so good that his body just responds. And now he's well ahead of where he needs to be with his size, strength, and power. And this means he can focus more time on other aspects of his game. This is someone who doesn't need direct arm work. But then there's others who have to fight tooth and nail, both in the gym and in the kitchen, to gain even the smallest amount of muscle. We've got another one of our players who's actually one of our coaches now, and he managed to gain over 20 kilos of lean tissue over a 4-year period. But for us to get that result, he did have a significant period of time where he needed the extra training stimulation from an arms day. So suffice it to say, you'd be silly to ignore a really useful tool like direct arm work because some guru says it's not functional. So let's jump straight in and we'll talk about training your biceps. And to be a little more precise, we're actually talking about the movement we call elbow flexion. Most people just think that if you're flexing the elbow, you're doing a curl movement pattern, and all curl movement patterns are bicep curls. Therefore, we should just call all the movements biceps or bis for short. Well, that's not exactly accurate, as the elbow flexion movement involves the brachioradialis, brachialis, pronator teres, and of course the biceps brachii, both the long and the short head. So, that being said, we're training the elbow flexion movement, not just bis, and here is how we want to do it. Firstly, if you're training arms on your upper or your lower day, you want to be doing it as an ancillary exercise, so at the end of either of those workouts, either as C or a D exercise. And just like we've done with both the upper and the lower days, you want to pair an exercise for the front of the arms with an exercise for the back of your arms. So an elbow flexion exercise with an elbow extension exercise. Or for all you meatheads out there, a biceps movement paired with a triceps movement. Yeah? But today we're just talking about elbow flexion, so let's go a little bit deeper into that. Now there's 3 distinct elbow positions that you want to look at when training elbow flexions. Elbows in front of the body. This upplays the short head of the biceps. So exercises like preacher curls, concentration curls, and 30 degrees prone curl variations, they all fall into this category. The next is when your elbows are in line with the body. This is where both the long and the short heads of the biceps are working equally. Exercises like standing dumbbell or barbell curls, standing easy bar curls, or even a seated dumbbell curl with the bench in an upright position. And then finally, we have movements with the elbows behind the line of the body, which target the long head of the biceps. So basically, any kind of incline dumbbell curl will fall into this category. Right, so that's elbow positioning. Another variable that is just as important that we need to take into account with our exercise selection is grip. Different grips target different parts of your elbow flexors more than others, and the practice of alternating or changing your grip from program to program is beneficial both for maximally stimulating the target muscles, making sure the whole body part is being trained properly, while also ensuring you don't develop pattern overload syndrome. And that is a definite problem. You know, one of the most common issues that we see with young guys coming to see us who've been training in the gym, you know, when they want to try it themselves for a few months, is too much volume with the one exercise, with the one grip orientation. You basically just your regular curl. And it results in overtraining of that same body part, often causing, you know, pain, discomfort, injury to the elbow and the forearm. And this is usually only fixed by an extended period away from lifting, which is obviously not ideal. All of which could have been avoided by simply alternating the grip used from program to program. Now, which grip orientations do what exactly? Well, using a pronated grip, or when you grab the implement with your palms facing down, that increases the recruitment of your brachioradialis, brachialis and pronator teres, with the latter two receiving even more stimulation with a neutral or a hammer grip. The most common grip used, however, is obviously it's the supinated or the palms up grip, which will increase activation of the biceps brachii. Like I said, this is easily the most common grip used. However, I cannot emphasize enough just how important it is to vary your grip away from this from time to time. So, when training elbow flexion, or biceps, if that's still the only way that you understand it, there's three things that I want you to remember. First, you need to make sure that you include an equal amount of exercises with elbows in front of the body, with the elbows in line with the body, and with the elbows behind the body. Secondly, you also need to ensure that from program to program, you change your grip orientation between a supinated grip, or hands in a palms up position, a semi-supinated grip, sometimes called neutral or hammer grip, with your hands just like this, and finally a pronated grip, where your palms are facing down. And thirdly, you need to try to pair exercises for both the elbow flexion and elbow extension movements together. And remember that if you're including them on your upper or your lower day, put them after the main lifts. So, you know, the bottom line is, if you're not paying attention to these things, you're missing out on gains. But if you get a bit smarter about your exercise selection, then get ready to stack some serious mass onto those arms. Trust me, because I'm Joe, and Joe knows.